The music was still playing when the scream cut through the house. Not the kind of scream that comes from excitement or surprise, but the kind that freezes blood and silences joy in one sharp breath. People turned. Laughter died midair. Red cups slipped from shaking fingers and rolled across the polished living room floor. The Christmas lights kept blinking like nothing was wrong, green and red reflections dancing on walls that had just witnessed something no parent ever forgets. In the center of the room, 12-year-old Malik Johnson stood barefoot, his small body stiff, his eyes wide and empty. His Christmas sweater, blue with a smiling snowman, was torn at the shoulder. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely keep them by his side. And standing in front of him was his father, Derek Johnson, 6 feet tall, respected in the neighborhood, church deacon, loud laugh, friendly smile. A man people trusted with their children. A man parents waved to and said, "That's a good father right there." But in that moment, Derek's face was twisted with anger and fear, his chest rising fast, his eyes darting around the room like he had just realized how many people were watching. In the corner, Malik's mother, Tanya, dropped to her knees. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Someone whispered, "Jesus?" Another voice said, "Call 911. A child began to cry. And just like that, a Christmas party turned into a nightmare that would follow every parent in that room for the rest of their lives. What nobody knew yet, what nobody could imagine, was that this moment did not begin tonight. It began weeks earlier, and it began with a decision that many parents make every December, thinking it is harmless. The house on Maplewood Drive had been buzzing since early afternoon. Tanya had cleaned until her hands hurt. Derek had dragged speakers into the living room and tested the sound system twice. The smell of fried chicken, baked mac and cheese, jollof rice, and honey-glazed ham filled every corner of the house. It was their annual Christmas party, a tradition. Friends from church, neighbors, family members, kids running everywhere, sugar high from soda and cookies, chasing each other between adults' legs while Christmas music played loud enough to shake the windows. Tanya loved moments like this. She believed memories were built in noise and laughter. She believed a house full of people meant safety. Malik had been excited all day. He had helped hang decorations, arguing with his younger cousin over where the star should go. He wore his sweater proudly, even though it was a little small, because his mother had bought it just for him. "Don't get it dirty," Tanya warned with a smile. "I won't," Malik promised. But as the night went on, Tanya noticed something she couldn't quite explain. Malik stopped laughing. He stayed close to the wall, watching instead of playing. When music got louder, he flinched. When adults hugged him, he stiffened. Once, Tanya saw him watching the front door like he was waiting for a chance to run. She brushed it off. "Kids get tired," she told herself. "It's just noise." She didn't know that earlier that evening, while she was busy in the kitchen, Malik had been called into the spare bedroom by someone everyone trusted. Someone she never would have suspected. Hours passed. The party grew louder. Derek laughed with his friends, holding a drink, telling stories about work. He looked proud, comfortable, relaxed. Too relaxed. When Malik accidentally bumped into a table and spilled a drink, Derek's smile disappeared. "What's wrong with you?" he snapped, loud enough for people to hear. Malik froze. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Derek grabbed Malik's arm and pulled him toward the hallway. Tanya saw it and frowned. "Derek, leave him. It's just a drink." "I said I got it," Derek replied, his voice sharp. People watched but said nothing. Parents do that, Tanya thought, discipline their kids. But Malik's eyes met his mother's as he was pulled away. And in those eyes was fear. Real fear. Minutes later, the scream echoed through the house. And now, the truth was about to spill out in front of everyone. Derek finally noticed the room. The silence. The phones raised. The shocked faces. "What are you all looking at?" he demanded. Malik's lips trembled. Tanya crawled toward her son. "Baby, talk to me." Malik opened his mouth. And what he said next would tear the Johnson family apart forever. He took a breath, his voice breaking. It wasn't an accident. The room gasped. Derek stiffened. "What are you talking about?" Malik looked around at the adults, at the children, at the Christmas tree, glowing behind them. "You told me not to say anything," Malik said quietly. "You said nobody would believe me." Tanya felt the floor disappear beneath her. "Say what?" she whispered. Malik swallowed hard, and then he pointed, not at his father, but at someone else standing in that room. Someone smiling just moments earlier. Someone who had been invited every year. Someone parents trusted. The music stopped completely. The Christmas lights blinked, and every eye followed Malik's finger. Before Malik could say the name, the front door burst open, and everything changed. If this story has already made your heart beat faster, take a moment now to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter. Like this video to help more parents hear this message, and share it with someone you care about, especially a parent. Also, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. What would you have done if you were in Tanya's place? The front door slammed so hard the reef fell to the floor. Cold night air rushed into the house, brushing against stunned faces and shaking tinsel on the walls. Everyone turned at once. Standing in the doorway was Officer Raymond Cole, still in uniform, his radio crackling at his shoulder. He was off duty, invited to the party as Derek's old high school friend. His smile faded the second he saw the scene in front of him. Tanya on the floor, Malik shaking, phones raised, silence thick like smoke. "What happened here?" Raymond asked slowly. No one answered. Malik's finger was still raised, pointing, not at Derek, at Uncle Leon. Leon Carter stood near the Christmas tree, a red Santa hat tilted on his head, a plate of food in his hand. He was Tanya's cousin. He had watched Malik since he was little, picked him up from school sometimes, bought him video games. Everyone called him good with kids. Leon laughed nervously. "Man, why he pointing at me?" Malik's arm trembled but stayed raised. "You said it was a secret," Malik whispered. "You said it was our little game." The room seemed to shrink. Tanya felt her heart pounding so loud she could hear in her ears. "Leon, what is my son talking about?" Leon shook his head quickly. "This is crazy." He's confused. Kids imagine things. Raymond's eyes narrowed. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "Malik," he said gently, lowering himself a little, "I need you to tell me exactly what happened." Derek snapped. "This is not the time for police questions." Raymond looked at him sharply. "Then why am I seeing fear on that boy's face?" Malik's voice cracked. "He told me to come to the spare room. He said he had a gift for me. He said if I told, Christmas would be ruined." A woman covered her mouth. A man whispered, "Oh no." Leon's face flushed red. "That's a lie." Tanya stood up slowly, her legs weak. "Leon, swear at me this is not true." Leon opened his mouth, then closed it. That pause lasted only a second, but it was enough. Derek stepped forward, rage flashing across his face. "You better start talking." Raymond raised his hand. Everybody calmed down. But calm was already gone. Parents pulled their children closer. Some ushered them into the kitchen. Phones recorded quietly. The Christmas tree lights reflected in wide, fearful eyes. Leon laughed again, louder this time. "You all really going to listen to a kid over me?" Malik began to cry. Tanya wrapped her arms around him. "You did nothing wrong," she whispered, even though her own heart was breaking. "You hear me? Nothing." Raymond spoke firmly. "Leon, I'm going to ask you to step outside." Leon's smile vanished. "I'm not going anywhere." Raymond's hand hovered near his radio. "Then you're making this worse." That's when Derek exploded. "You!" he shouted at Leon. "You been around my house all this time?" Tanya turned sharply. "Derek, stop." But Derek wasn't listening. He had missed the signs. All of them. The quiet moments. The flinching. The way Malik stopped wanting to be alone. And now shame and anger battled inside him. Raymond stepped between them. "Derek, back up." Leon suddenly shoved past Raymond and ran toward the back door. Someone screamed. Raymond moved fast, grabbing Leon's arm. Plates crashed. Chairs fell. Guests jumped back. "Let me go." Leon yelled. Malik buried his face in Tanya's chest. Raymond pushed Leon against the wall. Party's over. Within minutes, the house was filled with flashing red and blue lights. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering. Kids cried. Parents made phone calls. Leon was let out in handcuffs. As he passed Malik, he hissed, "You ruined everything." Raymond stopped him. "Don't say another word." The door closed behind them. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. Tanya sat on the couch. Malik curled beside her. Derek stood across the room, staring at the floor. "I didn't know," Derek said softly. Tanya looked at him. Her eyes were red, tired, but sharp. "You didn't look." That hurt more than any shout. Later that night, after everyone left, after the decorations felt heavy and wrong, Tanya sat awake while Malik slept in her bed. She replayed every moment in her mind. The sleepover she allowed, the ride she approved, the trust she gave without question. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You think this is over?" Her blood ran cold. She looked at Malik, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. And she realized something terrifying. Leon was not the only one who knew. If this story is making you think differently about the people around your children, pause here and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. Like this video to help other parents hear this message, and share it with someone who needs to hear it before the next holiday gathering. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and answer honestly. Have you ever trusted someone with your child without asking enough questions? Morning came without peace. The sun rose like it always did, slipping through the curtains and landing softly on the walls. But nothing felt normal anymore. The house smelled faintly of last night's food and melted candles. Streamers hung crooked. A single red ornament lay shattered on the floor, forgotten. Tanya hadn't slept. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of cold tea she forgot to drink. Every few seconds, her eyes drifted toward the hallway, toward the bedroom where Malik slept. She had checked on him so many times during the night that she lost count, pressing her fingers gently against his back just to make sure he was breathing. Derek sat across from her, silent. For the first time in their marriage, neither of them knew what to say. The knock on the door came just after 8 a.m. Tanya flinched. Derek stood slowly. "I'll get it." Two social workers stood outside, badges clipped neatly to their jackets. Behind them was Officer Raymond Cole, his face serious, no longer the friendly guest from the party. "Good morning," one of the women said gently. "Mrs. Johnson, we need to speak with you and your son." Malik watched from the hallway, holding his blanket tightly around his shoulders. Tanya's heart broke again. They sat in the living room, the same room that had been full of music and laughter just hours ago. Now it felt cold and exposed. One of the social workers knelt in front of Malik, her voice soft, careful. "You're very brave," she told him, "and you didn't do anything wrong." Malik nodded but didn't speak. When they asked questions, he answered quietly, choosing his words like they were heavy stones. Tanya listened, tears rolling freely down her face. Derek stared at the wall, his jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. Every answer felt like another door closing on the life they thought they had. After the officials left, the house fell into silence again. Derek finally spoke. "I should have protected him." Tanya looked at him. Protection starts with listening. Those words hung between them. Later that day, Tanya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Family members, friends, church members. Some offered prayers. Some offered sympathy. Some asked questions that felt like knives. "Are you sure?" Kids can misunderstand. Leon has always been good to children. Tanya stopped answering. That afternoon, Malik sat on the couch staring at the TV, without really watching it. "Do you hate me?" he asked suddenly. Tanya froze. "What?" "For ruining Christmas." Her chest tightened. She pulled him into her arms. "You save yourself. You save other kids. That's not ruining anything." Malik's voice was small. He said nobody would believe me. Tanya kissed his forehead. "I believe you." But belief didn't erase fear. That night, Malik woke up screaming. Tanya ran to him as he thrashed in bed, calling Leon's name. She held him until his shaking stopped. Something inside her hardened. This wasn't over. The next morning, Tanya drove Malik to therapy. The waiting room was quiet, filled with soft music and gentle colors. Malik sat beside her, swinging his legs nervously. "Mom," he whispered, "what if he comes back?" Tanya squeezed his hand. "He won't." But deep down, she wasn't sure. As they walked back to the car, Tanya noticed a folded paper tucked under her windshield wiper. Her heart raced. She unfolded it with trembling hands. "You open your mouth. Now live with it." Tanya looked around wildly. The parking lot was empty. That night, Derek received a call. Leon had been released on bail. Tanya felt her knees give out. Release didn't mean free. It meant waiting. And waiting is where fear grows strongest. Tanya sat alone in the living room long after Malik fell asleep. The Christmas tree still stood, its lights dim, mocking her. She thought about all the parents who would gather again next year. Music loud, doors open, trust given freely. And she realized something painful and powerful. Danger doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it sits on your couch, eats your food, and smiles at your child. The phone buzzed again. A voicemail notification. Tanya pressed play. Leon's voice filled the room, low and calm. "You should have stayed quiet." Tanya's hands shook, and she knew one thing for sure. This story was far from over. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of this powerful story. Like this video if you believe more parents need to hear this message, and share it with someone you care about. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and be honest. What would you have done if this were your child? The house no longer felt safe. Tanya noticed it in the smallest things. The way the floor creaked at night. The way shadows stretched across the hallway when the lights were off. The way Malik jumped whenever a car slowed down outside. Fear had moved in quietly and made itself comfortable. Leon being out on bail changed everything. Tanya double-checked locks even in the daytime. She kept the curtains drawn. Malik stopped asking to play outside. He stayed close, always within reach, like the world beyond the walls had teeth. Derek tried to act strong. "I'll handle this," he said one evening, pacing the living room. "I'll talk to a lawyer. I'll make sure Leon never comes near us again." Tanya watched him, arms folded. "This isn't about pride. This is about our son." Derek stopped pacing. "I know." But knowing didn't erase the guilt eating him alive. At church that Sunday, whispers followed them. Some people hugged Tanya tightly, tears in their eyes. Others nodded politely but avoided Malik's gaze. A few stared too long, like they were trying to decide which side of the story they believed. Malik squeezed Tanya's hand. "Can we go home?" he whispered. "Yes," she said immediately. That night, Malik asked a question that broke her heart. "Mom, am I bad?" She knelt in front of him. "Why would you think that?" "Because everything got messy after I talked." Tanya held his face gently. "Listen to me. You told the truth. Truth protects. Lies hurt." Malik nodded. But doubt still lived behind his eyes. 2 days later, Tanya got a call from the school. Malik hadn't spoken all day. When a boy accidentally bumped into him, Malik screamed and hid under his desk. Tanya picked him up early and drove home in silence. As she parked the car, she saw something that made her stomach drop. Leon's car, across the street. Engine off, windows dark, just sitting there. Tanya locked the doors quickly and drove away, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. She didn't stop until she reached the police station. Raymond listened carefully. "He's not supposed to contact you." "He didn't," Tanya said, "but he was watching." Raymond nodded slowly. "That's still a problem." That night, Raymond arranged patrols near the house. Still, Tanya barely slept. Then came the message that changed the direction of everything. A woman named Angela Brooks sent Tanya a private message online. "I saw your story. I think my son went through the same thing." Tanya's hands shook as she read it. They met the next day at a small cafe. Angela looked tired, older than her years. "My son changed," Angela said quietly. "Nightmares, anger, silence. He used to stay at my sister's house, sometimes. Leon was there." Tanya's breath caught. Angela continued, My son never said a name. Until now. Tanya felt tears spill over. They weren't alone. More messages followed. More parents. Different neighborhoods. Same pattern. Leon. Always trusted. Always close. Always hiding in plain sight. The case grew bigger. So did the danger. That night, Malik overheard Tanya on the phone. "Mom," he asked softly, "is it my fault they're all hurting?" Tanya pulled him close. "No, baby. Because you spoke, they can heal." Outside, a car engine started. Slow. Too slow. Tanya looked out the window. Leon's car rolled past the house. And this time, the driver looked straight at her and smiled. The message was clear. He wasn't done. And neither was the fight. The smile stayed with Tanya long after the car disappeared. It followed her into the kitchen, into the hallway, into Malik's bedroom where she sat beside him until he fell asleep. It wasn't a happy smile. It wasn't friendly. It was a message without words. "I know where you live." That night, Tanya didn't turn off the lights. She sat on the couch with her phone in her hand, jumping at every sound. Derek paced quietly, checking the doors, the windows, the backyard fence. He looked like a man trying to fix something already broken. "I should have seen it," he said again, his voice low. "I let him into our home." Tanya didn't answer. She was done arguing with the past. The next morning, she called Angela. "We need to stick together," Tanya said. "They'll try to break us one by one." Angela agreed. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but I'm more scared of staying quiet." By noon, 3 more parents had joined a group chat Angela created. Different cities, different schools. Same story. One mother said her daughter stopped speaking at age 9. Another father said his son became angry, distant, afraid of being alone. Names were compared. Dates. Details. Leon's name kept appearing. Patterns began to form. Tanya took everything to Raymond. "This helps," he said seriously. "It shows history. But will it be enough?" Tanya asked. Raymond paused. "It strengthens the case, but it also raises the stakes." That warning proved true faster than anyone expected. That afternoon, Malik didn't come home from school on time. Tanya checked the clock again and again. 20 minutes late. 30. She called the school. "He left with his class," the secretary said. "Didn't he arrive?" Tanya's heart dropped. She drove the route home, scanning sidewalks, bus stops, playgrounds. She called Malik's phone again and again. No answer. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered with shaking hands. "Hello." Silence. Then breathing. Slow. Controlled. Tanya's knees weakened. "Who is this?" A familiar voice finally spoke. "You really don't listen." The call ended. Tanya screamed Malik's name and hit the gas, racing back toward the school. Police cars met her halfway, sirens screaming. Raymond was already there when they found Malik, sitting on the steps of a closed library, crying, shaking, alive. Tanya fell to her knees and held him, sobbing into his hair. "He told me to wait," Malik whispered. "He said you were coming." Raymond's jaw tightened. This time, Leon had crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. That night, emergency protection orders were issued. Patrol cars stayed parked outside the house. But fear had already done its damage. Malik stopped sleeping again. Tanya stopped eating. Derek stopped pretending strength was enough. In the quiet hours before dawn, Tanya realized something painful but powerful. This wasn't just about protecting Malik anymore. It was about stopping someone who believed silence was weakness. And she was done being quiet. She picked up her phone and opened her notes app. She began to write. Everything. Names. Dates. Messages. Moments. Because if this story was going to end, it would end with the truth louder than fear. The notebook became Tanya's anchor. Every morning after Malik left for school, escorted now by a police officer, Tanya sat at the dining table and wrote. She wrote until her fingers cramped and her eyes burned. She wrote things she wished she could forget, and details she knew she must never lose. Dates Leon visited. Times Malik stayed behind with him. The spare room door that was always closed. The jokes that felt wrong now. The gifts that came with silence. Writing didn't erase the pain, but it gave it shape. Derek watched it from a distance, unsure how to help. The house felt different between them. Not broken, but changed. Conversations were careful. Touches were rare. Love was still there, but it wore the weight of regret. One evening, Derek finally spoke what had been sitting on his chest. "I failed him," he said. Tanya looked up. "You're still his father. Failing once doesn't mean you stop showing up." Derek nodded, tears filling his eyes. "I won't fail again." At school, Malik began meeting with a counselor twice a week. He didn't talk much at first. He drew instead. Dark lines, closed doors, stick figures standing alone. One day, he drew a picture of himself holding his mother's hand. "That's safety," the counselor said gently. Malik nodded. Across town, Leon's confidence began to crack. With more parents coming forward, detectives reopened old reports that had once gone nowhere. Stories that were brushed aside. Warnings that were ignored. Now they were being heard. Leon hired a lawyer. He started telling people he was being set up, that parents were turning against him because of one lie. Some people believed him. That hurt almost as much as the fear. Tanya saw the comments online. "Why now? Sounds made up. Kids are easily influenced." She stopped reading after someone wrote, "Parents like her ruin good men's lives." That night, Malik asked a question that surprised her. "Mom, can bad people look nice?" Tanya thought carefully. "Yes, that's why they're dangerous." He nodded slowly. "I'm glad I told." So was she. A week later, Raymond called. "We have enough for formal charges," he said, "but we need Malik's statement recorded." Tanya closed her eyes. "He's already said so much." "I know," Raymond said gently. "This part is hard, but it matters." They told Malik together. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "If I talk, will he stop hurting kids?" Tanya swallowed. "Yes, that's the goal." Malik nodded once. "Okay." The interview room was small and warm. A teddy bear sat on the table. A camera blinked red. Malik spoke slowly, carefully, honestly. Tanya held his hand the entire time. When it was over, Malik looked exhausted, but lighter. That night, as they drove home, Tanya felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. But hope doesn't come without resistance. As they pulled into the driveway, Tanya saw something taped to the front door. A single piece of paper. She froze. Derek tore it down and read it. His face went pale. It was a court notice. Leon was fighting back, and the battle was officially beginning. The courtroom felt colder than Tanya expected, not in temperature, but in spirit. Wooden benches lined the room, polished and quiet. The judge's seat towered above everyone else, like a reminder of how small this fight could make you feel. Tanya held Malik's hand tightly as they sat behind the prosecutor's table. Derek sat on the other side of Malik, his posture stiff, his jaw locked. Leon sat across the room. He wore a clean suit. His hair was neatly trimmed. If you didn't know better, you might think he was a victim. That thought made Tanya's stomach turn. Leon didn't look at Malik. He looked at the judge. Calm, confident, like a man who believed he would walk out free. The hearing was short, but every word felt heavy. The prosecutor spoke about patterns, about multiple families, about years of silence. Leon's lawyer responded smoothly, questioning memories, timing, motives. When Malik's name was mentioned, Leon finally glanced over, just for a second, and in that second, Malik squeezed Tanya's hand harder. She leaned down and whispered, "You're safe." The judge ordered the case to move forward. Trial date set. Bail conditions tightened. Leon was warned to stay far away. As they left the courtroom, reporters waited outside. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. Tanya shielded Malik with her body. "Is your son lying? Why did it take so long to come forward?" Derek snapped. "Back up." They drove home in silence. At home, the phone rang nonstop. Some calls were supportive. Others weren't. An anonymous voicemail said, "You should have kept family matters private." Tanya deleted it without responding. That night, Malik couldn't sleep again. "Mom," he whispered, "what if people don't believe me?" Tanya sat beside him. "The truth doesn't stop being true just because people doubt it." He nodded, but fear still lived in his eyes. Days turned into weeks. Therapy continued. School sent support letters. Angela and the other parents stayed in close contact, sharing updates, reminding each other they weren't alone. Then one afternoon, Tanya received a call that made her sit down. Leon's lawyer wanted a private settlement. No trial, no public record, just silence in exchange for money. Tanya felt anger rise like fire. "They want to bury this," Angela said when Tanya told her. "They want to protect him," Tanya replied. That evening, Derek spoke up firmly for the first time in weeks. "We don't take it," he said. "Not for any amount." Tanya looked at him, surprised. "Our son's voice matters," Derek continued. "So do the others." The decision was made. They would go to trial. That night, Tanya stood alone in the living room, staring at the Christmas tree they still hadn't taken down. The lights flickered weakly. She unplugged it. Some traditions end, so new ones can begin. Outside, a car slowed near the house. Tanya's heart jumped, but it didn't stop. It drove on. For the first time in a long while, fear didn't win, because the truth was finally walking into the light. The trial began on a Monday morning. Gray skies hung low over the courthouse, matching the heavy feeling in Tanya's chest. She arrived early with Derek and Malik, holding her son's hand like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Malik wore a simple navy sweater. He looked smaller than his age, but his eyes were steady. Inside, the courtroom filled slowly. Families sat quietly. Some parents Tanya recognized from the group chat. Others she had never met, but somehow knew by the way they held themselves. Tense, tired, determined. Leon was brought in last. He didn't look confident anymore. His shoulders were tight. His eyes scanned the room quickly, stopping when he saw how many people were there. Not just one family. Not just one child. Many. The prosecutor began with a calm voice, laying out the story piece by piece. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just clear. A trusted adult. Repeated access. Silence created through fear. Patterns ignored. When the first parent testified, Tanya felt her chest tighten. The woman spoke softly, explaining how her daughter had changed years ago, how she blamed herself for being a bad mother, how the truth came out too late. Then another parent. Then another. Each story was different in details, but the same at its core. Leon stared at the table. When Malik's turn came, the courtroom went silent. Tanya felt Derek's hand on her back as Malik walked to the witness seat. He was small in the chair, his feet not touching the floor. The judge spoke gently. "Take your time." Malik nodded. He spoke slowly like he had practiced. He didn't look at Leon. He looked straight ahead. He talked about the spare room, the gifts, the words that made him feel trapped, the fear that told him to stay quiet. At one point, his voice shook. Tanya's heart broke, but he didn't stop. When it was over, Malik stepped down and walked straight into his mother's arms. Leon's lawyer tried to challenge Malik's memory, asked questions that felt sharp and unfair. Malik answered honestly. "I remember because it scared me." That sentence stayed in the air. By the end of the day, the courtroom felt heavy with truth. That night, Malik slept without nightmares for the first time in months. The next days brought more testimony. Experts spoke. Records were shown. Messages were played. Leon's mask slipped. When he finally took the stand, his voice was defensive. He blamed misunderstandings. He blamed lies. He blamed everyone but himself. But the room no longer believed him. Tanya watched the jury closely. They were listening. All of them. On the final day, the prosecutor stood and said one sentence that Tanya would never forget. "Silence is what allowed this to happen. Speaking is what stops it." The jury left to deliberate. Hours passed. Tanya held Malik close. Derek paced. Parents whispered prayers. When the jury returned, the room stood. The verdict was read. Guilty. On all counts. Tanya felt the air rush out of her lungs. Tears streamed down her face. Derek dropped into a seat, covering his mouth. Malik didn't cry. He just leaned into his mother and closed his eyes. Leon was taken away, no longer smiling, no longer protected by silence. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited again. This time, Tanya stopped. She spoke calmly. This is not about revenge. This is about protecting children. Listen to them. That night, the house felt lighter. Not healed, but safer. And that mattered. Yet, Tanya knew something else was coming. Healing doesn't end with a verdict. It only begins. Life did not return to normal. Instead, it became something new. The days after the verdict were quiet in a way Tanya had never experienced before. Not the heavy, fearful quiet from before, but a slow, careful silence, like a house learning how to breathe again. Malik woke up without screaming. That alone felt like a miracle. He still went to therapy. Some days he talked. Some days he didn't. Healing, the counselor explained, does not move in a straight line. It moves like a river, forward, backward, then forward again. Tanya learned to be patient. Derek changed too. He no longer assumed silence meant peace. He asked questions. He listened more than he spoke. When Malik didn't want to be hugged, Derek respected it. When Malik wanted to sit quietly beside him, Derek stayed. One evening, Malik surprised them both. "Dad," he said, "can we build something together?" Derek swallowed hard. "Yeah, I like that." They built a small wooden shelf in the garage. It wasn't perfect. One side leaned slightly. But Malik smiled every time he looked at it. At school, things were still hard. Some kids whispered. Some parents avoided Tanya. Others came quietly to thank her. "I didn't know how to say it," one mother confessed. "But my son opened up because of your boy." That made Tanya cry in her car. Angela called often. So did other parents from the group. They talked about therapy appointments, court follow-ups, and the strange mix of relief and grief they all felt. "You don't just lose the bad memories," Angela said once. "You lose the version of life you thought you had." Tanya understood that deeply. One afternoon, Malik asked a question she wasn't expecting. "Mom, are you proud of me?" Tanya stopped what she was doing and knelt in front of him. "I am so proud of you that I don't even have words." He nodded, satisfied. The house on Maplewood Drive slowly changed. The spare room door stayed open now. Light filled it. Toys returned. Fear moved out little by little. The Christmas decorations were finally packed away. But one thing remained. A framed piece of paper on the wall near the kitchen. It wasn't fancy. It just said, "Listen to your child." Always. Visitors noticed it. Some asked about it. Tanya always answered honestly. Not with details, but with truth. One night, long after Malik went to sleep, Tanya and Derek sat together on the couch. "We almost lost him," Derek said quietly. Tanya nodded. "But we didn't." Derek took her hand. "We won't waste that." Outside, the neighborhood was calm. Children laughed somewhere down the street. A dog barked. Life continued. And for the first time in a long time, Tanya believed it could continue safely. Still, she knew the story wasn't just theirs. There were parents out there planning parties, opening doors, trusting smiles, and not asking enough questions. That thought stayed with her, because some lessons are learned too late, and some are learned just in time. The next Christmas came quietly. No big party. No loud music shaking the walls. No house full of people whose smiles Tanya had to study twice. Just family. Snow fell lightly outside, dusting the street like a clean sheet laid over old memories. Inside the house, the tree stood tall, simple, glowing softly in the corner. No blinking chaos. No forced joy. Just warmth. Malik sat on the floor, opening a small box carefully, his movements calm, thoughtful. He was taller now, his voice deeper. Still a child, but no longer fragile in the way he once was. Tanya watched him from the couch, a mug of cocoa warming her hands. She remembered the fear from last year, the scream, the silence, the way her world had cracked open in one moment. And she remembered something else too, the mistake that almost cost her everything. She had trusted noise over intuition, Tradition over awareness. Familiar faces over uncomfortable questions. Like so many parents do. Derek sat beside her, his arm resting lightly on the back of the couch, not forcing closeness, just present. Next year, he said quietly, maybe we invite people again. Tanya thought about it. Maybe, she replied, but with rules. Derek nodded. Always. Later that afternoon, Malik asked if they could visit the community center. There was a small holiday program there now, something new that had started after the trial. Tanya knew why. Several parents from the case had come together to create it. A safe space. A place where kids could talk. Where adults listened. At the center, Tanya watched Malik help a younger boy with a puzzle. He spoke gently, patiently. The boy smiled. That sight filled her chest in a way she couldn't explain. A mother nearby approached Tanya. I recognize you, she said softly. Your story helped me listen to my daughter. Tanya swallowed hard. I'm glad you listened. The woman nodded. I almost didn't. That sentence stayed with Tanya the rest of the day. Almost. Almost didn't notice. Almost didn't believe. Almost didn't ask. On the drive home, Malik looked out the window quietly. Mom, he said. Yes. Do you think other parents will be more careful now? Tanya thought about all the doors that would open this season. All the parties. All the laughter. All the moments when adults would look away. Because everything seemed fine. I hope so, she said honestly. But even if some aren't, some will be. And that matters. Malik nodded. That night, after Malik went to bed, Tanya stood alone in the living room. The tree lights reflected in the window. Outside, the street was peaceful. She thought about the parents who would hear this story. Some would feel uncomfortable. Some would feel defensive. Some would say, that could never happen in my home. And some would pause. They would watch their child a little closer. They would ask one more question. They would listen one more time. And that one moment could change everything. Tanya turned off the lights and headed to bed, knowing the past would always be part of them, but it would never control them again, because the most important lesson wasn't about fear. It was about listening. And every parent needs to hear that before the next Christmas party. The story did not end with a verdict. That was the first lesson Tanya learned. She thought once the courtroom doors closed, once the sentence was handed down, life would finally slow down. She believed healing would come quietly, like sleep after a long day. She was wrong. The weeks after the trial brought a different kind of storm. News stations replayed the case again and again. Blogs wrote half-truths. Comment sections filled with opinions from people who had never stepped foot in that courtroom and never held a shaking child in their arms. Some praised Malik as brave. Others questioned him. Some blamed Tanya. She should have known. She exposed her child. She wanted attention. Tanya stopped reading after the first few days. Derek deleted social media entirely. Protecting Malik now meant protecting his peace. But the world outside didn't stop reacting. At Malik's school, a fight broke out between two parents during pickup. One accused the other of overreacting about child safety. Voices rose. Kids watched. The principal sent out a long email about boundaries, supervision, and reporting concerns. Some parents welcomed it. Others complained. People are too sensitive these days. One father muttered loudly in the parking lot. Tanya heard him. She didn't respond. She had learned something powerful. Not every battle needs a reply. Angela called one evening, her voice shaky. My sister won't talk to me anymore, she said. She says I destroyed the family name by speaking up. Tanya closed her eyes. You told the truth. I know, Angela said, but it hurts. Yes, Tanya replied gently. It does. That pain spread quietly through families connected to Case. Cousins stopped calling. Friends stopped inviting. Churches chose silence over discomfort. And yet, something else was happening at the same time. Teachers started asking better questions. Parents began staying longer at pickups, watching more closely. Community centers asked Tanya and Angela to speak. Not about details, but about listening. Malik noticed the changes too. One afternoon, he came home thoughtful. Mom, he said, my friend Jaden told a teacher something today. Tanya's heart skipped. What happened? He said someone made him uncomfortable. The teacher listened. Like, really listened. Tanya felt tears sting her eyes. That's good, she said softly. Malik nodded. I think he felt lighter after. That word stayed with Tanya. Lighter. Not healed. Not fixed. But lighter. At dinner one night, Derek spoke up. You know, he said, I used to think being a good father meant providing, protecting, setting rules. And now, Tanya asked, and now I know it means paying attention, he said, even when it's uncomfortable. Malik looked up from his plate. Especially then. Derek smiled sadly. Especially then. But just as life began to settle, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Tanya hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single page. No threats. No insults. Just words. I almost didn't believe my daughter. Then I heard your story. I listened. Thank you. Tanya sat down slowly. Another letter came 2 days later. Then another. Parents from different states. Different backgrounds. Same message. Listening changed everything. That night, Tanya placed the letters in a folder and slid it into the same drawer as her old notebook. Pain and purpose side by side. She realized something then. This story had grown beyond them, beyond Malik, beyond that Christmas party. It had become a warning, a reminder, a responsibility. And as long as parents kept listening, the story would keep saving children she would never meet. The call came late at night. Tanya was folding laundry in the quiet living room when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. For a moment, she considered letting it go to voicemail. Life had taught her to be careful with unknown voices, but something told her to answer. Hello. There was a pause. Then a woman's voice, thin and shaking. My name is Renee Walker. I got your number from the community center. They said you might understand. Tanya sat down slowly. I'm listening. That was all it took. Renee began to cry. Not loud, dramatic crying. The kind that comes from holding things in for too long, where every breath feels like it might break you. Tanya waited. She had learned that silence can be kind. I almost made the same mistake you did. Renee said finally, Actually, I think I already did. Renee lived 2 states away. She was a single mother with a 9-year-old daughter named Aaliyah. She worked long hours and depended heavily on family help. Her older cousin, Marcus, watched Aaliyah after school. He's family, Renee said weakly. I trusted him. Everyone does. Tanya felt her chest tighten. She knew this beginning too well. Aaliyah changed, Renee continued. She stopped singing. She started locking the bathroom door. She didn't want to go with him anymore. I told her she was being rude. Tanya closed her eyes. Then came the sentence that made the room feel smaller. Last night, she tried to run away. Renee found Aaliyah sitting on the front steps at midnight with a backpack and no shoes. When Renee asked why, Aaliyah finally spoke. She said she was scared of Marcus. Renee's voice dropped to a whisper. I told her she misunderstood. I told her not to accuse people. I told her to stop talking. Tanya felt tears roll down her face. I did exactly what I promised myself I'd never do, Renee said. I silenced my own child. Tanya took a slow breath. You're here now. That matters. Renee sobbed harder. Does it? What if I already failed her? Tanya's voice was steady. Failure is refusing to listen. You're listening now. There was a long silence on the line. What do I do? Renee asked. Tanya didn't rush the answer. You protect her. You believe her. And you don't face this alone. Over the next few days, Tanya walked Renee through everything. Who to call, how to document, how to speak to her daughter without fear or blame, how to stay calm when guilt tried to swallow her whole. Renee followed every step. Marcus was removed from contact within 48 hours. Aaliyah began therapy. And slowly, very slowly, she began to smile again. One afternoon, Malik overheard Tanya on the phone with Renee. Is that another kid? He asked quietly. Yes, Tanya said. Did listening help again? Yes, she replied, her voice breaking. Malik nodded thoughtfully. Then it's worth telling the story. That night, Tanya couldn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about how close Renee had come to repeating history, how easily fear, denial, and comfort can push truth into silence. She wondered how many parents never got the second chance Renee had. The next morning, Tanya was invited to speak at a parents' forum at a local school. She didn't want attention. She didn't want sympathy. But she went. She stood at the front of the room and looked at the faces. Mothers, fathers, guardians, people who loved their children, but didn't always know how to protect them. She didn't share details. She shared lessons. Danger doesn't announce itself, she said. It hides in trust. It hides in routine. It hides in family. The room was silent. If your child changes, she continued, don't correct them first. Listen first. Several parents wiped their eyes. After the forum, a man approached her quietly. I didn't believe my son once, he said. I will never forgive myself. But today, I heard you. Tanya nodded. Then today matters. That evening, Tanya came home to find Malik sitting at the table, drawing. What are you making? She asked. He turned the paper toward her. It was a house. Big windows. Open doors. People inside talking. At the top, he had written carefully, a place where kids are heard. Tanya pulled him into a hug, because taught her something powerful. Most parents don't mean to fail. They fail because they don't know what listening truly costs, and what it truly saves. Malik didn't talk about it at first. That was how Tanya knew something was wrong. He still woke up on time, still ate breakfast, still packed his bag neatly and tied his shoes without being reminded. From the outside, he looked fine, strong, growing, healing. But Tanya had learned not to trust appearances. She noticed the small things, the way Malik paused before leaving the house, his hand lingering on the doorknob as if he were counting something in his head, the way he stopped humming while doing homework, the way his eyes followed adults a little too closely, like he was measuring safety in real time. One evening, Tanya found him sitting on the floor of his room, staring at the shelf he had built with Derek months earlier. You okay? She asked gently. Malik nodded. Too quickly. That night, Tanya lay awake listening to quiet. Healing had brought peace, but had also brought awareness. Malik now saw the world differently. Once you learn that danger can hide behind smiles, you never fully unsee it. The moment came a week later. Malik's school announced a weekend field trip preparation meeting. Parents and children gathered in the gym. Folding chairs scraped the floor. Teachers chatted easily. It felt normal. Too normal. Malik sat beside Tanya, quiet. Then his body stiffened. Tanya felt it instantly. Mom, he whispered, barely moving his lips. That man. Tanya followed his gaze. A volunteer stood near the equipment table, laughing with another parent. He wore a school badge and a friendly expression. Someone Tanya vaguely recognized from past events. What about him? Tanya asked softly. He watches kids, Malik said. A lot. Tanya's heart began to pound, but she kept her voice calm. What makes you say that? Malik swallowed. He keeps standing too close. And when kids move away, he moves too. Tanya didn't panic. She didn't dismiss it. She listened. Thank you for telling me, she said quietly. Stay with me? She watched the man carefully. Not with fear, but with focus. She saw it then. The way his eyes lingered too long. The way he brushed shoulders unnecessarily. The way he offered help that wasn't needed. Tanya stood. She walked calmly to the teacher in charge and spoke quietly. No accusations, just observations. The teacher's face changed. She thanked Tanya and stepped away. Within minutes, the man was asked to leave the area and later escorted out by administration. The meeting continued, but the mood had shifted. In the car on the way home, Malik stared out the window. You did good, Tanya said. Malik shook his head slightly. I was scared. That's okay, she replied. Courage doesn't mean not being scared. It means speaking anyway. Malik was quiet for a long time. Then he said something Tanya would never forget. I think this is why I had to go through it. Her chest tightened. Why? So I can notice, he said. So I can say something. That night, Tanya cried alone in the bathroom, not from sadness, from the weight of what her son carried. He shouldn't have had to learn this so young, but he had, and he was using it to protect others. At school, the incident spread quietly, not publicly, not dramatically, but teachers began reviewing supervision rules. Parents were reminded to stay present. Volunteers were screened more carefully. No headlines, just prevention. Derek listened carefully when Tanya told him. Our boy trusted his voice, Derek said, pride and pain mixed together. That matters. Malik overheard them. Dad, he said, I don't want to be known for what happened. Derek knelt in front of him. Then what do you want to be known for? Malik thought. For helping. Derek nodded. Then that's who you are. That weekend, Malik asked to help at the community center again. This time, he helped younger kids with reading. He was patient, kind, careful. A little girl tugged on Tanya's sleeve later. Your son listens, she said. Tanya smiled through tears. Yes, he does. Taught Tanya something profound. Healing doesn't erase pain. It transforms it. And sometimes, the bravest protectors are the children who were once unheard. The warning came quietly. That was the dangerous part. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a crime scene. It wasn't a headline. It was a sentence spoken in passing. Tanya was at the community center one afternoon, helping organize flyers for a parent safety workshop, when she overheard two women talking near the doorway. I don't want to cause drama, one of them said nervously, but my son doesn't want to go to the after-practice room anymore. The other woman sighed. Kids complain. Coach is strict, that's all. Tanya's hand stopped moving. She didn't turn around right away. She didn't interrupt. She listened. I asked him why. The first woman continued. He said Coach makes him feel weird when they're alone. I told him he was overthinking. That sentence hit Tanya like a punch. Overthinking. She had used that word once too. Tanya turned slowly. Excuse me, she said calmly. I'm sorry to interrupt, but may I ask how old your son is? The woman looked surprised. 10. Tanya nodded. Did he say what felt weird? The woman hesitated. He said, Coach stands too close. Touches his shoulders a lot. Tells him not to tell anyone because it'll get him kicked off the team. The room felt smaller. The second woman crossed her arms. That's serious to accuse someone of. Tanya met her eyes. It's serious to ignore it too. Silence fell. The first woman's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to be wrong. Tanya's voice softened. Neither did I, but listening saved my child. They sat down together. Tanya didn't tell her what to think. She didn't push panic. She asked questions, gentle ones, the kind that make space for truth. That evening, the woman, her name was Carla, went home and talked to her son again. This time, she didn't interrupt. She didn't explain things away. She listened, and what she heard made her knees weak. By morning, the school district was notified. Practice was suspended. An investigation began quietly, carefully. No accusations were announced, but boundaries were enforced immediately. Within days, 2 more children spoke up. The near tragedy was stopped before it became one. Carla called Tanya, sobbing. I almost sent him back there. I almost told him to stop making trouble. Tanya closed her eyes. But you didn't. No, Carla whispered, because I heard you in my head, telling me to listen first. That night, Malik noticed Tanya was quieter than usual. You okay? He asked. She pulled him into a hug. Someone listened today. Malik nodded slowly. Good. Later, Tanya told Derek what had happened. Derek sat back heavily. So close, he said. Yes, Tanya replied. Too close. That word stayed with her. Close. How many times had harm come close to their family before it finally happened? How many warnings had been missed because they didn't look dangerous enough? That night, Tanya stood in Malik's doorway, watching him sleep. He looked peaceful, safe. She thought of all the children who didn't get that ending because someone had chosen comfort over courage. She thought of all the parents planning holiday events, sports seasons, parties, sleepovers, trusting systems, trusting smiles, not realizing how thin the line really was. The next day, Tanya helped finalize the safety workshop. Flyers went out. Parents signed up. The room filled. She stood at the front again, but this time she didn't speak as a survivor. She spoke as a warning. You don't need proof to listen, she said. You don't need certainty to protect. If something feels off, pause. Ask. Stay present. A father raised his hand. What if we're wrong? Tanya answered without hesitation. Then your child learns you care enough to listen. That's never wrong. After the workshop, Malik waited quietly. Mom, he said on the drive home, do you think it stopped something bad? Tanya nodded. Yes. He looked relieved. Then everything that happened to us, it helped. Tanya swallowed the lump in her throat. Yes, she said. It did. Revealed the hardest truth of all. The most dangerous situations are not the ones that explode. They are the ones that almost do. And the difference between tragedy and safety is often just one parent who chooses to listen in time. The lesson settles slowly. Not like fear, which crashes in all at once, but like understanding, quiet, steady, permanent. By the time the next December arrived again, Tanya realized something important. Their story had stopped being just a warning. It had become a mirror. Parents didn't come to her anymore asking, what happened? They came asking, how do I listen better? That change mattered. The house on Maplewood Drive looked brighter now. Not because everything was perfect, but because fear no longer ruled the rooms. Malik laughed again, real laughter, the kind that came from his chest, not forced or careful. He still had moments. Some nights were harder than others. Healing never erased the past completely, but it gave him ownership of his future. One evening, Malik came home with a permission slip. Mom, he said, there's a school holiday party next week. Tanya's heart paused. Old fear tried to rise. She didn't ignore it. She examined it. Do you want to go? She asked. Malik nodded. Yes, and you'll be there. She smiled. I will. They attended together. The room was loud but supervised. Doors were open. Adults rotated responsibilities. Children stayed in groups. Nothing went wrong. And that was the point. Later that night, Malik sat on the couch beside Tanya. Mom, he said thoughtfully, I don't feel scared like before. Tanya brushed his hair gently. That's because you're safe and because you know your voice matters. At the community center, the program expanded. Parents volunteered. Kids learned words for feelings. Silence lost its power there. Renee called again one afternoon. Aaliyah sang today, she said through tears. Out loud. Angela sent a message. My son slept through the night. Carla shared that her boy had returned to practice, this time with proper supervision and new rules. Small victories. Quiet victories. The kind that don't make headlines but change lives. On Christmas Eve, Tanya stood at the window watching Malik help Derek carry boxes inside. Snow fell softly again, just like last year, but it didn't feel heavy this time. It felt clean. Tanya thought back to the woman she had been before the scream. The woman who believed danger was loud. The woman who believed love alone was enough. She knew better now. Love must listen. Love must act. Love must stay uncomfortable when comfort costs too much. That night, Tanya tucked Malik into bed. Mom, he asked sleepily, do you think parents will remember this story? Tanya smiled softly. Some will. And the ones who don't? She kissed his forehead. Their kids will remind them. Malik drifted off to sleep. Tanya stood in the doorway for a moment longer, then turned off the light. The house rested, not in silence, but in safety. And somewhere, parents were planning parties, decorating homes, inviting friends, laughing. But now, some of them would pause. They would watch. They would ask. They would listen. And because of that, a scream would never happen. That is why every parent needs to hear this story before the next Christmas party.